Okay, let's dive in. We've all probably had that late night thought, right? Is any of this actually real? The things you see, hear, feel right now?
It's one of the oldest questions, really, and back in 1999, The Matrix just blew that question wide open for a whole generation.
Absolutely. It wasn't just cool sci-fi. It really hit on something deep,
Uh-huh.
connecting with ideas from, well, everywhere, neuroscience, physics, even really old philosophies.
Exactly, and what's fascinating is how these different fields, seemingly miles apart, actually seem to be pointing towards similar ideas about reality, about the self.
So that's our mission for you today. We're going to unpack how The Matrix isn't just a movie, but a kind of story that brings these huge questions right into your world.
We'll explore the connections, pull out the key insights, maybe even shift how you see things a little.
And we'll keep it straightforward, plain English, no dense jargon, ready to go down the rabbit hole.
Let's do it.
All right, first stop, the story itself.
Mm.
Most people know the basics. Thomas Anderson, who's also the hacker Neo.
Living a pretty unfulfilling life, feeling like something's fundamentally wrong with the world, like a dream he can't wake up from.
Right. And then comes Morpheus, this mysterious figure. He reveals the truth.
And it's a bombshell. Neo's reality, it's a massive shared computer simulation. The Matrix.
Run by AI, and humans are essentially batteries, living in these pods, powering the machines.
It's a chilling concept, and the name itself, Matrix, is interesting, from Latin meaning womb or a structure, a grid.
Which fits perfectly, doesn't it? A simulated womb holding humanity.
Multiple layers of meaning, all baked into that one word.
And then the choice. The iconic red pill or blue pill.
Truth, however hardened or blissful ignorance, go back to sleep in the simulation.
It really makes you think. And the film doesn't shy away from the appeal of ignorance, does it? With Cypher.
Oh, Cypher's choice is powerful. He knows the stake isn't real, but he chooses the illusion because it feels good. Ignorance is bliss, literally, for him.
It challenges us, What do we really value? Comfort, or the often uncomfortable truth.
And there's another layer revealed later, those early versions of the Matrix, the perfect utopias.
Right, they failed. Humans couldn't handle perfection.
Exactly. People just died. The AI discovered humans need more than just safety and comfort. They need struggle, purpose, meaning.
That echoes Viktor Frankl's work, finding meaning even in the absolute worst conditions.
Precisely. The will to meaning. Without a believable story, a sense of purpose, people couldn't survive, even in a simulation designed to sustain them. The AI had to make it believably imperfect.
So right off the bat, the film asks, is our own search for meaning the thing that makes life feel real, regardless of the underlying framework of reality?
And funnily enough, modern neuroscience kind of backs this up in a strange way. It tells us that everything you experience, color, sound, touch, isn't inherent out there.
It's constructed. Where? Inside our heads.
Entirely. Your brain takes raw data, light waves, air pressure, chemical signals, and translates it into your subjective reality. The redness of red isn't in the apple, it's a brain event.
So we're already living in a sort of internal simulation.
In a very real sense, yes, sometimes called an egocentric tunnel or world model. Your brain is constantly building your perceived world.
Which leads us straight to that classic philosophical puzzle, the brain in a vat.
Ah, yes, the ultimate how do you know scenario.
Can you walk us through it quickly?
Sure. Imagine your brain, just the brain, is taken out and kept alive in a nutrient solution, a vat.
Okay, creepy start.
And it's connected to a supercomputer, feeding it perfectly realistic sensory signals. Everything you'd normally see, hear, feel, taste, it's all simulated electronically.
So you'd be living a completely normal life from the inside.
Exactly. You'd think you were walking, talking, eating. How could you possibly prove you weren't just a brain in a vat?
Couldn't. There'd be no external reference point.
That's the unsettling conclusion.
And this isn't just sci-fi anymore, is it? With things like Neuralink.
Well, that's pushing the boundaries. Elon Musk's Neuralink is putting chips in brains, allowing thought control of computers. The first human patient is already doing it.
Initially for medical reasons, right?
Yes, but the long-term vision involves interfacing human intelligence directly with AI. It makes that brain in a vat seem, well, less purely hypothetical, maybe. It certainly blurs the lines.
It's amazing how this uncertainty isn't new, though. You mentioned an ancient Chinese story.
Right, the story of Zhuangzi dreaming he was a butterfly. He wakes up and is deeply confused. Am I Zhuangzi who just dreamed I was a butterfly?
Or am I a butterfly, now dreaming I'm Zhuangzi?
Precisely. That fundamental doubt about the nature of experience itself.
So the core takeaway here is, Our brains are already reality generators.
Pretty much. Your brain is already doing the simulation work. The question isn't just if we're in another simulation, but understanding the one we're definitely in, the one created by our own minds.
Okay, so if our individual brains are simulators, let's zoom out. What about the whole universe? This is where the simulation hypothesis comes in, right? Proposed by Nick Bostrom.
Yes, Bostrom's argument is essentially statistical. He says, look, if any civilization, anywhere, ever reaches a technological stage where they can create truly convincing, conscious simulations.
Like indistinguishable from their own reality.
Exactly. And if they run many such simulations, maybe exploring their history or just for entertainment, who knows, then the sheer number of simulated realities would vastly outweigh the one single base reality.
So statistically speaking,
it's far more probable that we are living inside one of those simulations than in the original base reality. It's a numbers game.
and people like Rizwan Virk argue we're getting close to that tech level ourselves. The simulation point.
That's his term, yes.
Mm.
He points to things we're seeing develop rapidly now. Photorealistic video games, VR getting incredibly immersive.
Holograms you might be able to touch soon.
3D printing potentially moving towards printing biological tissue, bioprinters. And as we said, brain-computer interfaces like Neuralink.
His argument is, if we can see the path to creating these simulations,
Why assume we're the first? Couldn't we already be living in a simulation created by a future or entirely different civilization? Our past could be their simulated experiment.
wow. Okay, and then physics throws in its own curveballs. John Wheeler's it from bit. What is that? Sounds very abstract.
It is a bit mind-bending. Wheeler suggested that maybe information is the most fundamental thing in the universe. Not matter or energy, but bits of information, yes-no answers, basically.
Like computer code.
Sort of. The idea is that physical reality, the it, emerges from this underlying informational code, the bit. The universe might be, in essence, an information processing system.
Which sounds suspiciously like a simulation.
It has that flavor, doesn't it? And then you
Yeah.
have other weird quantum stuff.
Like entanglement. Particles linked instantly over vast distances.
Right. How does that work in a purely physical world? But if reality is information-based, maybe they're just linked in the code, regardless of spatial distance in the rendered world.
And the holographic principle.
Yeah.
That the universe is like a hologram.
Yeah, that's another wild one. The idea that all the information describing our 3D universe might actually be encoded on a distant 2D surface, our reality being a projection.
Again, sounds very computationally efficient if you're designing a universe simulation.
It does seem strangely aligned with simulation ideas, but here's what's truly stunning.
What's that?
These cutting-edge physics concepts, these simulation ideas, they echo insights from ancient wisdom traditions in an almost spooky way.
How so?
Well, over 2,500 years ago, you have teachings saying things like, all phenomena are like reflections. They lack inherent existence on their own.
Like images in a mirror.
Exactly. Or the idea that nothing has fixed substance. Everything exists only in relation to other things. Very relational, very dynamic.
And the mind playing a central role.
Absolutely. Concepts suggesting the world we perceive is fundamentally shaped by our own mind's activity, that it's a representation created by consciousness.
So modern science and philosophy are almost catching up to these ancient intuitions about reality not being quite as solid as it seems.
It certainly feels that way sometimes. The parallels are quite striking.
Okay, but if we are in some kind of constructed reality, simulation or otherwise, what about other people? Are they real? Or just part of the program?
That hits the other mind's problem square on. It's a classic philosophical headache.
How do I really know that you have an inner conscious experience like mine?
You can't, logically. This leads to the idea of the philosophical zombie.
Sounds ominous.
It's a thought experiment. Imagine a being that looks, acts, talks, even has the same brain scans as a conscious human. But inside, there's nothing. No subjective experience, no qualia, the feeling of redness, the sting of pain, lights are on, nobody's home.
Could you tell the difference from the outside?
Nope. By definition, you couldn't. They'd be perfectly mimicking consciousness.
And this feels relevant now with AI, right? Chatbots can sound empathetic, creative.
Exactly. Modern AI can produce incredibly convincing outputs. Does it feel anything? Most experts would say no, not yet anyway. They're sophisticated mimics, potential philosophical zombies.
So how does the Matrix handle this? It had different kinds of beings.
It did. You had the awakened humans, the AI agents, clearly programs, but also the vast majority of humans still plugged in, believing the simulation.
And did they have real experiences?
Crucially, yes. Within the Matrix, their love, fear, joy, pain, those experiences were portrayed as entirely authentic to them. The simulation was their reality, and their consciousness within it was genuine.
So the world might be virtual, but the experience can be real.
That seems to be the implication. Which leads to a profound point for us, for you listening.
Which is?
We don't interact with others based on logical proof of their consciousness. We operate on trust, on empathy, on the assumption of shared experience. Our whole social fabric, our values depend on believing others feel.
Even if we can't strictly prove it, the one thing we can be sure of is our own awareness, like Descartes said.
I think, therefore I am. Your own consciousness, this very experience of wondering about reality, is the bedrock you can stand on.
Okay, let's switch gears to another huge Matrix theme. Free will versus destiny. Neo is the one, the prophecy says so. Seems pretty determined.
Yet, he constantly makes choices. Big ones. Does the prophecy make his choices irrelevant, or do his choices fulfill the prophecy? It's a paradox.
And neuroscience throws another wrench in the works here, doesn't it, with those experiments?
Oh yeah, the Libet experiment and later studies are quite startling. They suggest that brain activity associated with a decision can start seconds before you consciously feel you've made the choice.
Seconds. So my brain decides before I do.
It seems that way sometimes, like your conscious awareness of choosing is more like a report after the fact, an interpretation of unconscious processes already underway.
So much for feeling like I'm in the driver's seat.
Well, the Matrix offers a more complex picture, I think. Remember the architect scene? Previous ones always made the same choice, reload the Matrix.
But Neo didn't, because of Trinity.
Exactly. His love for Trinity and emotional connection led him to break the cycle. It suggests that even within a system, maybe a seemingly deterministic one, new, unexpected outcomes can emerge.
Emergent freedom. Is that the idea?
Kind of. It's not about random, uncaused choice, but maybe about complex systems like brains or societies, or even AI generating novel possibilities that weren't strictly programmed in, like a flock of birds creating patterns without a leader.
That connects back to those ancient ideas too, doesn't it? About everything being interconnected.
Very much so. If there's no fixed, independent self making choices in a vacuum, but rather a constantly changing flow of causes and conditions,
then maybe freedom isn't about breaking free from the flow, but about how you navigate within it.
Precisely. Finding meaning, making value judgments, accepting responsibility for your part in that flow, even the parts you didn't consciously choose initially, taking ownership.
Like the Oracle tells Neo. What was that line?
You didn't come here to make the choice. You've already made it. You're here to understand why you made it.
Ah, right. So understanding the reasons behind our actions, even the unconscious ones, is where real agency lies. Self-understanding equals freedom in a way.
It's a powerful perspective. It shifts focus from, did I choose, to, why did this path unfold and what do I do now?
It's like connecting the dots looking backward. You see, the constellation emerged from choices you didn't even realize were significant at the time.
And that process builds trust in your deeper self that something within you is navigating, even when you're not consciously steering every second.
Okay, final big area. Remember that scene where Neo tries the building jump, fails, and actually bleeds after he jacks out?
Vividly. And Morpheus says, the body cannot live without the mind. And later, the mind makes it real.
If you die in the Matrix, you die in the real world.
The implication is huge. What happens in the virtual mental space has direct physical consequences. The barrier is porous.
That reminds me of what you said earlier about ancient thought. Thinking harm is like doing harm.
Yes, the idea that the mental act carries real weight, real meaning, perhaps even real consequence in some framework. The mind's power to shape reality, both internal and external.
And the film shows this tactically, too. The resistance fights inside the Matrix to achieve goals outside it, like cutting the AI's power.
The virtual actions have real-world strategic impact. One reality directly affects the other.
Which feels incredibly relevant today. Our online lives, what we post, who we interact with, the games we play.
It all bleeds into the real world, doesn't it? Socially, emotionally, politically. The line is getting fuzzier and fuzzier. Is online less real if it causes real emotions or real-world changes?
This brings us to that contemporary philosopher, Marcus Gabriel, and his rather bold claim. The world does not exist.
It sounds intentionally provocative, but his point is nuanced. He argues there's no single overarching container called the world that holds everything. Instead, there are countless fields of meaning, distinct domains where things exist according to the rules of that domain.
A chessboard is a field where the rules of chess make the pieces and their movements real within that context.
Exactly. Or a dream is a field where flying feels real. A novel is a field where characters feel real emotions. His famous example is unicorns.
Right. Even unicorns exist. How does he mean that?
He means they don't exist physically, obviously, but they absolutely exist within the field of meaning called myth or fantasy. And the joy or fear a child feels reading about a unicorn, that emotion is 100% real. The unicorn is real in that field.
So applying this, maybe the debate isn't, is the Matrix real or fake? Or is my online life real or fake?
Perhaps not. Maybe the better question, drawing from the Matrix, neuroscience, ancient wisdom, and thinkers like Gabriel, is what meaning and value are real within these different fields of experience?
Real and virtual aren't opposites, maybe, just different domains connected by our conscious experience and the meaning we find.
That seems to be a powerful convergence point.
Yeah.
The love, the connection, the growth you experience that is real regardless of the substrate.
So wrapping this deep dive up, we've covered a lot of ground. Is reality a simulation? Do we have free will? Are others conscious? Big question.
And we've seen the Matrix act as this incredible catalyst, reflecting ideas from science and philosophy, ancient and modern.
It really holds up, doesn't it?
It does. And as philosopher David Chalmers points out, even if we were in a perfect simulation, the happiness, success, and relationships you build within it would still be genuinely real experiences for you.
The substrate doesn't necessarily invalidate the experience.
Exactly. The critical thing isn't proving whether the world is base reality or simulation, but how you engage with the reality you do experience.
So, the final thought for you listening. The reality you perceive, the one happening right now in your awareness, is constructed. Whether by a computer, by your brain, by the laws of physics acting like code, the construction is happening.
But the meaning you create within it, the connections you forge, the person you become, those are undeniably yours. Those are real.
Your awareness right now is the most solid ground you have. Remember that kid in the Matrix with the spoon?
You not try and bend the spoon. That's impossible.
Let it tread. Only try to realize the truth.
There is no spoon.
It's about shifting perspective, realizing the limits aren't necessarily out there, but maybe in how you perceive them.
This whole exploration invites you to look deeper, question the default assumptions about your reality.
And to really value the meaning and the experiences you choose to create.
Yeah.
So the question isn't just, is it real, but what will you make real today?